I would like to introduce Faye Ginsberg, David P. Kreiser, Professor of Anthropology, Paulette Goddard, Director of the Center for Religion and Media, Department of Anthropology, Faculty of Arts and Science, and co-chair of the NYU Center for Disabilities Studies, who will present the candidate for Doctor of Humane Letters. Will Trustee David Katz please escort the candidate to the lectern?
Good evening, graduates of 2020 and 2021. It's such an honor to be able to introduce Judith Heumann. She is an internationally respected disability rights activist and a policymaker. Judith, you have been challenging the unequal treatment of disabled people throughout your life. You are carrying on the vision of your unstoppable parents, Ilsa and Werner Heumann. May their memories be a blessing. Among your trailblazing accomplishments, you were the first wheelchair user to teach at a public school in New York City. There's a long list. The first director of the Department of Disability Services in the District of Columbia. The first advisor to the World Bank on Disability and Development. You are an amazing and unrepentant badass, and I'm not the first person to tell you that. You have organized countless protests and sit-ins in your fight for disability rights, one of which successfully pressured the Carter administration to implement protections for disabled people and ignited a national disability rights movement that eventually led to the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990, which has transformed all our lives. You also, as if that weren't enough, worked with the U.S. Congress to develop legislation that would eventually become the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, from which all of you have profited. You served in the U.S. Department of Education under President Clinton and in the U.S. Department of State under President Obama. Your reach and influence in shaping international disability rights and justice is unparalleled. Thank you, Judith, and congratulations.
Judith Heumann, your accomplishments exemplify what one person can do to galvanize communities, launch a multifaceted movement, embed its values in legislation, and energize democracy in action. By virtue of the authority vested in me, I am pleased to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. I am now delighted to introduce Judith Heumann, who will respond on behalf of the honorary degree recipients this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Let me first deviate from my prepared remarks just to say that this movement is made up of thousands of people, and you are many of them. No one person ever creates a movement. Remember that. I would like to begin by thanking President Hamilton, members of the board, faculty and staff, distinguished guests, fellow honorees, all the families here tonight, and last but certainly not least, from near and far and online, the graduating classes of 2020 and 2021. It's been a minute, but you made it at last. It's a huge honor for me to return from New York, to New York, to be with all of you this evening, and to share this stage with such luminaries, such impressive and accomplished honorees as Lonnie Bunch and Jill Lepore. Your careers have been truly breathtaking, and all our lives have been enriched by your respective commitments to ensuring that our history and our culture are informed and animated by the voices of all people, including those whose lives and stories others have sought to devalue, to deny, and to denigrate. Thank you for all you continue to do to keep us informed, curious, and questioning, all things we need for a vibrant democracy. I understand there were some other honorees here for the class of 2022 earlier today, and that ceremony was a particularly hot ticket. Anybody here try to sneak in? I was tempted to. Believe it or not, Taylor Swift and I keep ending up at the same events, but never quite at the same time. I swear the same thing happened at the Sundance Film Festival in 2020. Anyone who can write lyrics like I could build a castle out of all the bricks they threw at me is definitely someone I would like to meet. Now, I've led protests that have closed down traffic on Madison Avenue. I've led peaceful sit-ins of federal buildings. I've testified before Congress on more than a few occasions, and I've even been the subject of a Comedy Central drunk history story. I have to confess, though, that nothing made me quite so apprehensive as the prospect of preparing remarks for your graduating classes. Why? Well, usually graduating classes are filled with people who have just finished their degrees, who are on the precipice of heading out into the world, and in many, though not all cases, are individuals who have yet to experience a major challenge or disruption in their lives. You completed your studies 1-2 years ago. You're already out working, pursuing further degrees, or otherwise moving on with your lives. And as of disruptions, if the last 2 years don't count as life-altering, I'm not sure what does. I've lived through a lot of upheaval in my life, but even for me, the last 2 years have been singularly remarkable. Back in early 2020, I was so excited at all the opportunities that were coming up. I was promoting my new book, Being Human, and participating in film festivals to support the documentary film, Crip Camp, which would later be nominated for an Oscar. It never occurred to me that all the events coming up on my calendar wouldn't just go ahead as planned. I still remember appearing on The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and then just days later, bam. It was as though someone had slammed on the brakes for the entire world, and everything was different. Anyone who knows me will tell you that I am a capital E for extrovert. I love meeting people and being out and about, being part of the hustle and bustle of the world. You can take the girl out of Brooklyn, but you can't take Brooklyn out of the girl. I do not like to sit still. I can't presume to know how it was for you to have this happen in the middle of your school year. But for me, suddenly the world felt much smaller and a lot quieter. And then came what we in the disability community feared: disabled people dying because our lives were considered less worthy of treatment, deaf people being hospitalized with no access to sign language interpreters to understand what was happening, or to meaningfully participate in decision-making about their care, people losing access to personal assistance services they needed to be able to live independently and avoid ending up in institutions. Over 200,000 residents and staff in long-term care facilities died of COVID, which accounts for more than 23% of all COVID deaths in the U.S., and many were unable to see their families even at the end of life. At times like that, it can be easy to feel overwhelmed, to feel powerless to change things, or to just give up and take it for granted that nothing can be done. But the disability community knew better. We're used to people telling us there are no solutions and then creating our own. So we did what we do best. We reached out to each other and to our allies, and we mobilized across communities to make change to benefit and include everyone in society. We demanded that the civil rights laws we'd fought so hard for be enforced in healthcare facilities, workplaces, transportation, schools, and elsewhere. We formed networks of support to keep each other connected and nourished in body and mind. And we smiled as society at large suddenly discovered online video conferencing technologies and workplace flexibilities that disabled people had been at the forefront of developing and advocating for long before the rest of the world realized they could be part of a new normal. And we embraced the ever-widening diversity of our community and the strength that we know comes with that. The disability community is one that anyone can join at any time. So our identities are naturally intertwined with all other groups in societies around the world. And with more people self-identifying as having a disability because of long COVID and society's increased interest in discussing mental health because of the impacts of the last 2 years, I am hopeful that yet more people will feel empowered to embrace their disability identity, and that everyone will finally realize disability is different. It is not deficiency. You've probably heard the Dr. Martin Luther King quote, that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. What is less often quoted is what he said next. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. If we haven't learned that after the last 2 years, I'm not sure what it will take to get people to recognize the truth of those words. We simply can no longer take it for granted that what affects others, for better or worse, and wherever they are in the world, won't also impact us all. The last few years have been hard, and at times heartbroken. No question about it. But like the finest of swords, or chocolates if you prefer, the tempering you've experienced in the forge of the pandemic has made you stronger, even when you might not always feel that way. That's why I am so excited about the world you are going to rebuild and are already shaping with your creativity, your power, and your diverse voices. Now and in the coming years, there are myriad issues that will require us to to come together across diverse communities if we are to meet those challenges. Whether it is global climate change, promoting biodiversity, protecting democracy, preserving our reproductive rights, creating communities that are more resilient, equitable, and inclusive, or simply supporting each other as we muddle our way through the daily challenges of life. Please know, and I know you believe, that you are up to those challenges. To the NYU classes of 20 and 21, congratulations. I wish you strength and good fortune as you move forward with your lives. And remember, never take for granted that you too have your part to play in weaving the strands of that single garment of destiny. Thank you.